Good morning. My name is Kevin Sieff, former Marine, former Navy SEAL, and now biotech recruiter for life science and tech industry. And I'll be stepping into the spotlight on the Veteran Crowd Network.
Welcome, everybody. This is Bob Louthan, your host of the Spotlight on the Veteran Crowd Network. Very pleased today to have as our guest Kevin Sieff. He is a 2008 graduate of the United States Naval Academy at Annapolis. And as he said, a former Marine and Navy SEAL. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to spend some time today talking about transition. Kevin, welcome to the program. Thanks for stepping into the spotlight.
I appreciate it, Bob. Thanks for having me.
So tell everybody where you're living right now and just a little bit about today. Then we're going to dive into the past a little bit.
Absolutely. Extremely fortunate. I live in Encinitas, California, which is about 30 miles north of the base in San Diego. Been here for 11 years or so. Thankfully for the military, both the Marines and the Navy kept me here for the majority of my career. But it is an absolute privilege to get to still be living here after my transition from the military.
Kevin, did you grow up in California, or did you where'd you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in the Bay Area, just south of San Francisco. Left there when I was about 19 for the Naval Academy. Haven't really been back there since, other than visiting family. But in terms of living there, I left a while ago. Lived on the East Coast for a few years, San Diego for the majority of it, and a short 2-year stint out in South Korea.
Very nice, very nice. So how does a guy from San Francisco growing up find interest in the Naval Academy? Did you always want to go into the military, or was it something that happened late in high school?
Yeah, I was fortunate that I had some close family members who were in the military. My grandfather on my mom's side was a merchant marine during World War II, driving around the Liberty ships to and from the U.S. to England while they were avoiding the German submarines. My other father was a doctor on board the Mercy during the Korean War. So he spent a rotation out on one of the hospital ships off of Busan, which is ironically where I was stationed. I was in Korea. And then I had one uncle was a Huey pilot. One uncle was a submariner, Naval Academy grad as well. That's how I got interested in the Naval Academy. And then one of my cousins was a crew chief on board the SH-60s in the Navy. And through him, his best friend was in the SEALs at a young age. I met him, I think I was 12 years old. Got interested in the SEALs then. Didn't know much about the military at the time. I didn't know the difference between officer, enlisted, much of the differences between the branches, other than, Army fought on the ground, Navy was on the water. But yeah, found out about the SEALs, found out about the Naval Academy. Seemed like a good school to go to. Put two and two together, and that became my goal, which took me from 12 years old all the way to 27 years old before I was finally able to realize that dream. And that's the whole story in itself.
That's great. So the Naval Academy was a little bit of a shock, I'm sure, going off to plebe summer. But did you find yourself at home in the military when you got there?
I actually really enjoyed the structure of it. At 19 years old, being an athlete, being energetic, having some direction of what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be a SEAL, but in terms of how I wanted to get there, I didn't have many of the answers. I just knew that that's where I wanted to be, and I was going to do everything I can to get there. So the Naval Academy gave me a lot of direction, a lot of structure, good amount of discipline. It was obviously very frustrating at times, like most of the service academies are, being locked on board a campus, having not really your freedoms, but a lot of your privileges restricted.
There are worse places to go to college, though, than Annapolis, Maryland, right? You say you were an athlete, too. Did you play sports in college?
I did. I went to the Naval Academy playing water polo. ended up not making the team after the freshman year. I was there for 1 year. Wasn't quite fast enough of a swimmer, and got into boxing after that. So I boxed the last 3 years.
Oh, okay. How'd you do in the academy championships there in boxing?
The
What weight
everyday
class were
boxing
you?
matches. Yeah,
Yeah.
I fought 165s, and it
You
was
don't look
fun. I've
like you
never.
got beat up that bad, so you must have been okay.
The
No
nose was still
broken
broken a little
noses
bit.
or that kind of thing.
Oh, the Navy fixed that in 2013. I had to have my deviated septum shifted back over so I can
Uh,
breathe through both nostrils.
oh my goodness. Okay. So you graduate from the Naval Academy in '08 and go into the Marine Corps and then switch over to Navy SEAL. You're one of a few people that I know that's done that, but one person that did do that that's kind of note is a guy named Pete Van Hooser, who's kind of a legend within the SEAL teams. I don't know if you know who
Mm-hmm.
he is, but tell me about being a Marine Corps officer, and then how did you transition to become a Navy SEAL? What was that process? Maybe it's
It
simple
is
to the people out there, and I'm just ignorant.
no, it is a painful bureaucratic process. So as I mentioned earlier, I was always trying to go become a SEAL. That was the ultimate goal. The Naval Academy was the path that I was using to get to being a SEAL. I didn't realize that there was other routes you can do. Uh, and so when I didn't get selected for that at the Naval Academy, obviously that was a big shocker. I've been going there for 3.5 years, expecting that was just going to be the outcome, and it didn't work
They
out.
give right many
And
SEAL slots from the academies, do they not?
no, there's only about 20, either 22 or 26 my year, and so you have a class
Out of
of
a
over a
class of
thousand.
almost 1,000, huh? Okay.
Oh, we were the first class over 1,000 people, and mind you, we were also the class that joined up. So we were applying to the Naval Academy in 2003 and started 2004, which is right as the war in Iraq was kicking off. So there's a lot of extremely motivated, talented, driven people who were going
Hmm.
to the academy at that time. Every single one of them knew they were going to war. It was no longer that ambiguous uh, environment where you might or might not go to war. Everyone in my class knew that they were heading off into a combat zone of some form. And so that it was just very, very stringent competition that I was going against. And unfortunately, I wasn't selected, but I had a amazing company officer, Major Stiskel, who was a Marine infantry officer. And I think out of our company, we had 13 people choose Marine Corps because of him. So I put Marine Corps as my second choice. And when my package went before the board, he actually told me later that he saw it come before the board. They saw that it wasn't my first pick, and Marines, very proud as they are, were initially going to say pass, because if anyone didn't put it as their first pick, then they obviously weren't that invested in the Marine Corps. But he spoke to them and said, I don't know why he wasn't picked for SEALs. I think he's a stellar candidate, and I think the Marine Corps would have a lot to gain by giving him a chance to be one of us.
So you ate a
And
box
so
of crowns to prove your loyalty, and you got
only
in,
the
huh?
orange ones. Yeah,
The orange ones. Okay, well, whatever flavor you prefer. So,
exactly.
so uh, tell me, novice that I am, so you went through an application process to switch into the SEALs. How long
Mm-hmm.
did that take? And what kind of qualification process did you have to go through once you achieved it?
For both a MARSOC and a SEAL package at the same time, just trying to get to the special operations community. MARSOC at the time had just opened up to all MOSs, so all the different occupational specialties in the Marine Corps. Before, you had to be infantry or some kind of combat arms. And so they had opened it up to a lot of people, which really backlogged their process. So I put in a package
What
for
was your
the
Marine
SEALs as well.
MOS?
I was a communication officer.
Okay.
And so I had both of the packages going concurrently to see which one would bite. And fortunately, on the second attempt, so I put in for SEALs one time, didn't get it. 6 months later, when you can apply again, I finally got picked up on that round, and that was about just past the 3 year mark within the SEAL, within the Marines. And so it took from just past 3 years, all the way to a week before my 4-year mark, before I was able to finally transition out of the Marine Corps and into the SEALs. It took almost 8 months
And so how old
of
were you when you went through
paperwork.
buds?
Yeah, 27.
27. That's not
And
too bad. That's, you still had it. You still had your youth. So, okay. So you get out of buds and go into the SEAL teams on the West Coast. Got to see
mhm,
the world a little bit for 7 years or so.
absolutely, yeah. Went to SEAL Team 7. Did 2 rotations with them, and then went to Korea as the special operations advisor to the admiral in charge of all naval forces in Korea. Was out there for 2 years, and that was a unique experience, especially at the time, because I went out there in 2017, and 6 months later was when all the missiles started flying. Everyone had to suddenly shift focus from the Middle East, where we've been looking for at that point 15 years. And
Were you there when Trump ultimately had his first meeting with
mhm,
Kim Jong-un also? Interesting.
yep,
I wonder, you
yeah,
probably
that
can't tell me, but I'm wondering how how, from your perspective, how was that an improvement? How did the landscape change when that event occurred, from a perspective of a guy who's on the ground in Korea?
I think from the looking at the Korean perspective, I think they were really excited to have that much focus on their problem again. Because remember, they don't care about most of the other problems going on in the world. They have two issues. They have their neighbors to the north, North Korea, and that constant threat of war. And then they have the Chinese to their west and all diplomatic issues that go alongside with being a very tiny country next to a regional behemoth. And so their relationship with America is vital for them, and to have such a renewed interest in their problem, I think they were really excited about. And it was interesting to watch the spotlight come into focus on North Korea and then shift off again after the Olympics. There was a lot of the nuclear testing, the missile launches, the rhetoric from both sides, Trump and Kim Jong-un. And then things kind of resolved a little bit, went to the Olympics, and there weren't any major outbursts. And so you're watching all these three-letter agencies come in, trying to figure out what's going on in the country. And then as things die back down again, the focus shifts back again. So it was interesting to have that front row seat to U.S. foreign policy.
So let's talk about this. So you decide to get out. I mean, right now you're still in the Navy Reserve, right?
I'm in purgatory between active
Ah,
duty
in
and the reserve. So
purgatory. Okay.
that's just thank you to COVID.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about your transition. You mentioned before the program, that you had a pretty smooth transition. You also attended the Honor Foundation, and
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear your perspective on transition and talk about the Honor Foundation. How did you get hooked up with the Honor Foundation? Did you know about it and apply, or somebody grab you off the boat?
The deputy commodore at Naval Special Warfare Group 1 down in San Diego, which is where I took orders to after I left Korea. I knew I was going to be getting out at that point, so I had about a year of runway to figure out what it is I want to do, what school I want to do, what type of industry I want to get into. And so my advice right off the bat to anybody planning on getting out is figure out as early as you can, and use as much time for planning as possible.
I'll pause right
And
here. For those of the listeners that don't know, the Honor Foundation is just this great organization that helps transitioning special operations service members, mostly Navy SEALs, because it's in San Diego, and also has a satellite operation in Virginia Beach. as
Mhm.
well. And I want to say they've got something going on down in the Carolinas also.
They do.
Perhaps they do. And so run by a guy named Joe Musselman. Phil Dana, has been on the program before. Phil's not with the Honor Foundation now, but just a great program. And I've had the opportunity to be at both locations, both in San Diego and in Virginia Beach, and participate in that. Tell everybody a little bit about your perspective on the program. It's about a 4-month executive MBA is the way I would
Hmm.
describe it, but tell us about it.
Yeah, I'd say, as you mentioned, Joe Musselman was a Bud student himself. Unfortunately, he had a
Got
back
injured.
injury
Yeah.
and wasn't able to complete. And so he wanted to figure out a way to give back and develop this program, which is now a extremely successful program. Which is, I think we have over 600 alumni that have gone through the program. That originally was there to help Navy SEALs transition out and help them figure out what it is they want to do, what's their driving force, but also how to take their very unique skill sets and experiences and translate them into something that a normal everyday business can put value to. As cool as it is to say you can fast rope out of a helicopter and shoot guns, it it's very difficult to explain how that is beneficial to a, but learning how to translate these skills into something relating to leadership and management and working under pressure, working in lean environments. Those are all things that companies care about. So they've tailored their curriculum to teach these guys that are going from what they originally thought was the world's greatest job, that the job that they never ever want to give up, and now they need to jump into a completely different part of their life and still feel that they're useful, that they're contributing, that they're giving back to society, that they feel gives them meaning in life. And they've done an extraordinary job of digging deep down into what each individual's why statement is to take from Simon Sinek's program, which they're actually a authorized teacher of. And although Navy SEALs tend to look very similar, about 5'10", 180 pounds, white guys, we all think very differently. And so not all of us want to get into an operations job at a big company. Some of us want to get in sales. Some of us want to get involved in nonprofits. Some people want to teach. Some people want to get into science. Whatever it is, we're all very different people. And so they don't tailor it to teach people to get into this one type of job. They make it so that you figure out what it is you want to do and the environments you want to get involved in. And then they also make it so that you can meet people from all kinds of walks of life, all industries. We met with people from PayPal, Amazon, Cruise, a bunch of seed round startups, venture capitalist firms. You get to talk to this wealth of experience out there. Plus, they have coaches for you, and their big tagline is to get out there and have 50 cups of coffee, meaning go out there, introduce yourself, and set up a coffee meeting with 50 different people or more, and hear about what they do.
So
Go into it
talk
with an
about the
open mind.
process. Talk about the process you went through personally. What were some of the shiny things maybe that you investigated, right? That you thought might be the career path for you. I don't know. Did you discover any that maybe weren't what you thought? And how did you settle on what you're doing now?
Absolutely. I mean, at no point in my initial transition was I thinking about getting into sales, HR, or recruiting. Wasn't even on the radar. Sales was this thing out there that I wanted no part of trying to pitch trinkets and try and get people to buy them. And HR was that wooey thing, talking about people's feelings and stuff like that. Wasn't anything I was interested in at all. I was going to do the typical team guy approach of getting into operations, particularly with a small team with a very defined mission, possibly with government contract, working security and stuff like that.
Right.
But as I started looking more and more into it, I really didn't want to do operations. I didn't want to be managing meetings, looking at peak performance and metrics and trying to steer a whole ship. I wanted to get back and learn about me as a contributor and refining my the skills that I can contribute. You know, my personal growth skills, and that drastically shifted the focus of where I was looking at. And so I interviewed with a couple companies, and none of them really seemed to pique my interest. And so when I met Tony Porter at a networking event, he's the former Army medic that I met. He's one of the founders of the company I work for now. And I was talking to him about his experience as a recruiter. And he's like, if you're a disciplined, hardworking, organized person who can speak with people, you can do very well in this industry. It's not difficult. You know, we're not out there curing cancer. We're not out there coming up with unique mathematical equations. We're connecting companies with people. And as easy as that sounds, there's a lot of people out there that do it incorrectly. They do it in a way that benefits them, but not the company or the candidates. And so if you can make a reputation for yourself as a hardworking, dependable person, and you can stay disciplined working from home or in a very unrestricted environment, military people can do very well. A lot of it's following procedures.
You've been in this role less than a year, right? So
Mm-hmm.
talk about what do you think are maybe some of the skills and disciplines that you had in the military that have helped you, during this startup period for you in this new career. You talked about the disciplines, hard work
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of thing. Do you think you're better prepared than the average Joe who's coming into this industry?
Yes, but not for the traditional reasons. I've had so many setbacks in my life, so many no's. As I mentioned earlier, from when I was 12 years old until 27 is how long it took me to actually get to BUD/S.
Right.
Setback. I was in the Naval Academy. I didn't get to SEALs on my first try from the Naval Academy. It took 2 more attempts applying for the Marine Corps. At BUD/S, I got medically enrolled for my first hell week because I was coughing up blood. And so
You had to do it twice.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Well,
my
1.5, but
God.
yeah. And so
Whew.
my path to where I am today has been filled with obstacles and setbacks and no's, and I had to get very creative to get where I wanted to be. As you mentioned, most people don't go from the Marine Corps to SEALs. And so with recruiting being very much a sales job, there's a lot of no's involved. Say, I'm not interested, don't want your services, don't need what you do, I can do it myself. And so having had so much experience with letdown and setbacks in the past, it doesn't faze me. So having someone say, "We're not interested," I have no trouble going back to them and seeing if there's another avenue I can approach them, or just letting that one go and going on to the next one. Not letting it faze me directly. And that's honestly probably one of the hardest things, is just being continuously leaning forward, trying to build new business and work with people, while majority of the time you're dealing with no's.
Kevin,
So that's where I've been really succeeding.
Kevin, I have a colleague, a guy that I heard a very good valedictory speech years ago, and he basically was saying that the military gave us a gift; it gave us failure, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that in a generation that's at least blamed for everybody getting a trophy, the military doesn't give those out. You earn everything you get. You own everything. It's about personal accountability. How do you react to that thought with regards to your transition and getting into business?
Yeah, I don't think the military is perfect in their meritocracy, but I don't think anybody is. I think the military does it as well as any organization that has over 1 million people in it. They try and keep it as standardized as possible. And so it does try to teach individuals to express their value, build on their value, and not just rely on doing the bare minimum to get through. Because while it may work for a while at the beginning, you'll eventually get a reputation. The military might be huge, but it's still a very small community. In many senses, you end up working with the same people over and over. So learning to help others out, build a network, go above and beyond, even if you were only asked to do A, maybe do A plus B and C because you know that that's the right thing to do. And that's largely where I've been trying to take my role, where I was originally brought on just to nurture, meaning the company finds the clients, and then we get the job description, we go find those people. So the people that are eventually going to hire. The harder part of recruiting, bringing in those new clients, because they're ultimately the ones that pay you. So when I was brought on, it was just, we're going to go find the candidates. Here's the jobs we have contracts for. I took that and said, I don't like just doing this part. I'm going to go out on my own and try and find some new clients as well. And I made plenty of mistakes. The first company that I was going to maybe sign with me, I was building out the contract. I misspelled the CEO's first name. I sent something else a little wrong. I was so excited. Like, this is going to be my first deal. Messed that one up. They ended up actually not signing it. But since then, I've brought on almost a dozen new clients in under a year, just because I've enjoyed that person-to-person interaction, explaining the value that I can bring as an individual and the value that theory as a team can bring them. They're essentially paying for one person to hire for them, but they have an entire team supporting them. So
tell everybody about theory before we get away from that. Tell everybody about the company Theory. It is founded by two veterans. Kevin Hess was a Marine, and you already mentioned Tony Porter, who was a combat medic, but not really a veteran business per se, because you're the first vet that they hired. But tell them what you're doing. I think the company's got 3 areas of focus: hiring tech people, right?
Yeah, so Theory was originally a software and hardware recruiting agency, and we just recently, pretty much at the start of 2020, opened up the biotech division. They're based out of LA, but when they saw that I was living down here in San Diego, they immediately put me on the biotech team, since San Diego is the 3rd largest biotech hub in the US after San Francisco and Cambridge. And so just having my proximity to these companies, where pre-COVID, I would have been able to go over to the offices, take them out to lunch, have coffee with them, just have some kind of face-to-face interaction with them. It's starting to build back up again now as San Diego is becoming a little bit more open.
And these clients are VC-backed businesses primarily, so they've got some outside funding. Okay. Are the venture capitalists interested in you helping build the team too? I mean, are you working? Is the VC firm the client, or is the company the client, or is it sort of both?
When I first got into this role, I couldn't tell you the difference between venture capital, private equity, angel investors. I just knew that it was one big amorphous.
Kevin, I've been in it for 25 years, and I can't tell you either. So, don't feel bad.
Yeah, well,
everybody's different. That's what I would say. You can generally categorize them, but go ahead.
But yeah, I had no idea what that world really entailed, and when I started seeing that so many of my clients were working with VCs to gain funding, I took it upon myself to go learn more about it. And I found a free 7-week course put on by Kauffman Foundation and Techstars. Okay. And they gave us really good in-depth education and the VC world from the entrepreneur's perspective. So from these startup companies, if you were a CEO, what type of information do you need to know about VCs, about the lawyers, about where the funding comes from, how to find VCs? And there was probably 2,000 people on the course. It was free. It was all through. I found it on LinkedIn, but
maybe I need to take it because after 30 years of doing this, I might actually understand finally what a Series A round is. One of those crazy things.
It was a great experience to learn from, but it was also a really good networking experience. I was able to get in contact with a few VC firms who I interact with regularly now. When I meet a new client that is looking for funding, I can make an introduction, which is a huge part for a startup, is having that warm introduction. A lot of these firms are getting dozens of email introductions every day trying to get funding from them. So having someone who's directly referring them, who they know, gives them a little bit more credibility to get 30 seconds of that general partner's time to maybe give them some funding. So that gives me a little bit of advantage with working with clients, because now I can offer more than just being a recruiter. I can now offer you access to some VC firms. I understand the VC world, so I understand what you're going through at different phases of your company's life cycle. And then within that network, I've also found other service industry people that support the startups, like finance people, insurance people, interim CFOs. While you're a brand new startup, you don't need to be paying and giving equity to a full-time CFO. There's outsourced stuff out there. So now I'm able to offer almost a one-stop shop service to all these startups that we can help you find people, but I can also introduce you to other people that'll help your business out. And I don't get any profit out of that. Like I don't make any money when I give the pitch deck to a VC firm, but by making that company successful, it builds them as a company, which in the long run will also build my business.
You're digging the well before you're thirsty, so you're
Exactly.
you're banking a lot of goodwill. Who have been some mentors or folks that have helped you along this process in the last couple of years?
I guess that would depend on what process.
Your
The Honor
transition,
Foundation,
yeah, the
but
Honor
yeah,
Foundation.
within the Honor Foundation, Joe Lara, Philip Dano, you were talking about, chat with Times, all the members of my cohort and my Honor Foundation cohort. We chat from time to time, seeing what's going on, what everyone's been working on. Within recruiting, obviously my two bosses, Tony and Kevin, and I've also met through one of my connections down here. He introduced me to Julia Kaplan, who's been doing retained search here in San Diego for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
She's a one-woman show. She does all her sourcing, all her business development. She doesn't even have an office manager. She just does everything herself. But she has a incredible network down here in San Diego, to where she doesn't have to reach out asking for business. They come to her because they know her as a known good. And so being able to pick her brain from time to time on what she's experienced, how to be a better recruiter, how to provide a better service that make you stand out as an individual. Because really, reputation is everything in this industry. If people know you and refer you, it's a huge difference and an advantage over people that are just trying to reach out with cold emails and cold calls.
Interesting stuff. So let's take a little bit of a step back now, and what advice would you give to other transitioning service members right now? I mean, you're not 20 years out of the military, but you're a mile ahead down the road. What are some of the things you wish you had heard 2 years ago? Uh, I don't know, maybe we'll drill in on the TAP program and some of the other things that the military does, good and bad. I've got some opinions
Yeah.
on that. But what sort of advice would you offer to that transitioning special operator, getting ready to think about getting out of the Navy or Marine Corps or some other spot?
Advice number one: do not rely on TAPs. It is good to get the 4-year contract kid who's 22 years old, doesn't really know what he wants to do, and he wants to get right into government contract or whatever. I understand the purpose, and I appreciate that they're putting in the effort. It is a bare minimum, though. And so if you're getting out, especially as a SEAL, or you've been involved in the soft community, you have so much more to offer that TAP isn't even going to touch on it. Find one of the programs, whether it's Elite Meet, Commit, Shift, Honor Foundation. Find one of those foundation programs that is really going to invest into you as a person, and take advantage of those. Especially if you're a SEAL, Honor Foundation is free. All you need to do is tell them that you're willing to commit the next 3.5 months to their program, and you're going to go in with an open mind. And you can get connected with some of the best people in the country. You get a personal executive coach who Honor Foundation has vetted and tied you in with. I've met with Gary Ridge, the CEO of WD-40. I met with John Rainey, who's the CFO of PayPal. The previous class met with, I forget his name, but he's the CEO of PayPal. And at the graduation ceremony, he offered every single guy in the cohort a job at PayPal if they wanted it. So the network of people that these groups can connect you with. Now, obviously, you can't speak to Commit, Elite Meet, or Shift, but I know people that have gone to them, and the network is everything. You know, you have skill sets, but being able to be introduced to the right people who can give you access to industry, to companies, and just insight into what is actually a meaningful job. That's where the transition really gets smoothed out. If you're just going to be applying to jobs online, going on Indeed, going on usajobs.gov or whatever it's called, yeah, you might have some success, but you're not going to find your dream job applying to a classified ad. It just doesn't happen. You find the dream jobs by being introduced to the right people who want to reach out and help you.
Have you made big use of social media, LinkedIn, or anything in particular in this process?
Yeah, LinkedIn is my lifeline right now, but that's largely because of the recruiting world. I mean, everything's done on LinkedIn. You find people, you find companies, you find out about jobs that are open. I've largely gotten off Facebook and Instagram. Aside from what's actually happening on those platforms, it was just so time consuming. I'd find myself
It's a
sitting on
high
my phone just
investment of
scrolling
time for a
through.
low return. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, what am I doing with my life? Scrolling through this stuff and looking at things that I really don't care about. So I'm not off them, but I took them off my phone. I've found I have so much better use of my time. Like my wife and I, we built a surfboard rack in our backyard, and we've been going surfing all the time. I'd much rather be doing that than scrolling through my phone on Instagram. But LinkedIn has been a very powerful tool. It's great for, especially as a transitioning soft member. Put on there that you're getting out on this date. This is what you're looking for. Reach out to people. If you have transitioning Navy SEAL, MARSOC, EOD, anything like that on your headline, and you just connect with people, you don't even need to give a welcome message or a connect with me message. People want to hear from you. They want to see what you have to say, hear about your experiences, grow your network, and a professional network, and reach out to people. Don't be afraid to ask for a little bit of help. Don't say, give me a job. Say, this is what I've been doing. This is what I want to do. Do you know of anybody who I can talk to? Do you know a job that would align with this? Give them very specific asks, and people will bend over backwards to help you, I've noticed.
In the VC world, you know, there's sort of this old saying, you know, if you go asking for money, you'll get advice. If you go asking it for advice, you'll get the money. And there's a little bit of a parallel to that in the networking side. You know, you want to meet somebody, ask them for advice. Don't go in head first and ask them for business, which is one of the huge mistakes I think people make in LinkedIn all the time. You know, they get connected and the first thing in my inbox is, you know, hey, Bob, don't you want me to redo your website? You know, and they haven't even taken the effort to develop a relationship or understand what we're all about at all. So let me ask you this question. Would you be willing to share maybe one big error or failure that you had that you thought might, you know, that you learned a lot from? I mean, one of the best things that happened to me in hindsight was getting fired, you know, 25 years ago, or I'd have never opened up my eyes and changed careers. So, you know, failure can be a good thing, but did you have some real life lesson along the way that maybe you'd share that people could learn from?
It's funny you said that. I had a very similar experience. I was fired as a platoon commander at one point, and that was what led me to ended up out in Korea, which introduced me to the head people of probably half a dozen three-letter agencies. I was working with Korean government officials, flag officers, U.S. government officials. My neighbor was the consulate general in Busan for the U.S.
So bad thing
so,
turned
yeah,
into a good thing, didn't it?
I'd made it into a good thing. As
There
much
you
as
go.
like I don't want to be the passive of, oh, just put me down this good path and made it this way. It sucked. Getting fired was absolutely terrible, and it was one of those things that was a bit out of your control. Things happen. You do your absolute best, and you can always look back and second guess yourself. But I was given this sandwich, as I say, and I had to eat it one bite at a time.
There you go. Let me ask
But
another question. Uh, how, and this is just kind of will be way out of left field, but how do you how do you think you manage stress? You know, you were in a very high stress environment. Maybe now you're in a stressful environment. It's different, but have you found ways to manage stress that's helped you cope with all the things you've done for the last 15 years?
mhm, the the thing about buds is that it is miserable and it seems like there's no point, but ultimately what it is it gives you a new baseline. You are able to put up with, to give a prime example of how random and chaotic it seems, you'd be going along the beach in Coronado at 6:30 in the morning. It'd be a cloudy, overcast day. The sun hasn't even risen yet. You're going as a class to breakfast, and it would come up over the berm and say wet and sandy. As a whole class, for no reason at all, you just had to go into the ocean, get wet, roll around the sand, and now you're sitting in breakfast, cold, shivering, sandy, miserable, and you guys did absolutely nothing wrong. Things just sometimes happen to where the instructors want to make you miserable. And the advantage of that now is that there's things that life throws at me all the time, but I have this perspective of it could be worse. I made it through this stuff. This doesn't mean anything. Let this one roll off. Things will go on. It seems terrible now, but in 2 days, I'll probably have forgotten about it. So having the ability to weigh how meaningful or how impactful the situation is compared to what's really going to happen. And, I'm not that old. I'm only 35, but, having the extra 15 years of experience on a 20-year-old, it's a lot of experience. Can say, I've been here before. This isn't that bad. We'll get through it. And it drives my wife nuts some of the times because she's like, why aren't you getting upset about this? Like, it just doesn't matter. I don't know. Like, it's not something that's spiking my blood pressure. And so I just
I
kind of let it
have
roll off.
I have had the exact same experience, and so well that is a great segue. I appreciate what you're doing, and Kevin, you've got a lot going on. Thanks for paying it forward. I'm a quick yes or no answer. You think you'll go back and do some coaching at the Honor Foundation in the future and that sort of thing?
I, I would like to, yeah. Once I get myself established in this community and I can give a little bit more than 6 months worth of insight. I mean, right now I've got great insight in terms of how the transition kind of happens, but I'd like to come back in a few years once I've been able to be established and say, these are the things I did along the way that worked. These are the ones that didn't. These would be my recommendations, and to have that little bit of separation of I've been out for 3 years, I've been out for 5 years, and things are still going well. I'm still happy about what I do. I feel excited. I feel like I have meaning and purpose. So having that, a little bit farther out, and people can see that it actually works. I think that's where it'll carry the most impact.
Well, this is great. Well, listen, everybody, we've been listening to Kevin Sieff. He is a Naval Academy grad, Marine Corps veteran, and Navy SEAL, now transitioning and working in recruiting for theory, looking for biotech people to go into VC-backed businesses. So anybody's interested in those opportunities, particularly in sunny Southern California around San Diego, you might want to reach out to Kevin. Kevin, thank you so much for stepping into the spotlight.
Absolutely, Bob. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
You've been listening to the Spotlight on the Veteran Crowd Network. We publish on Tuesdays and Fridays, and we bring veterans like Kevin Sieff out into the market, people that are making a difference in our community. We'll have links to all the ways you need to contact Kevin in our show notes. and would encourage you to follow us. We're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and others. So Bravo Zulu to you, Kevin, and that's a wrap.
Thank you.